Question number 1. What is the guiding idea of the theory of justice? A conception of justice which generalizes and carries to a higher level of abstraction the familiar theory of the social contract. It provides a moral theory alternative to utilitarianism. It addresses the problem of distributive justice and develops standards of principle of social justice that could apply to real societies. Also, the guiding idea is that the principle of justice for the basic structure of society are the object of the original agreement. They are the principles that free and rational persons concerned to further their own interests would accept in an initial position of equality as defining the fundamental terms of their association. These principles are to regulate all further agreements. They specify the kinds of social cooperation that can be entered into the forms of government that can be established. This way of regarding the principle of justice, John Rawls called it justice as fairness. Question number 2. What does Rawls mean by justice as fairness? John Rawls argued that justice is linked to the idea of fairness. Rawls discussed justice on an institutional rather than an individual level. Justice is based upon the concept of fairness. For something to be fair, no one can be exploited or made to submit to claims that appear illegitimate. Justice is the first virtue of social institutions, as truth is of systems of thought. A theory of elegant and economical must be rejected or revised if it is untrue. Likewise, laws and institutions, no matter how effective, efficient, and well-arranged, must be reformed or established if they are unjust. Question number 3. What is the relation between the original position and Rawls and the state of nature in traditional social contract theory? In justice as fairness, the original of equality corresponds to the nature in the traditional theory of the social contract. This original position is not, of course, thought of as an actual historical state of affairs, describing the rule of justice and social cooperation, and with a brief account of the primary subject of justice, the basic structure of society. It presents the main idea of justice as fairness, theory of justice that generalizes and carries out to a higher level of abstraction to the traditional conception of the social contract. Question number 4. What is to happen after persons have chosen a conception of justice? When a society is well ordered, it don't only designed to advance the good of its members, but when it also effectively regulated by a public conception of justice. That is, it is a society in which, number 1, everyone accepts and knows that the others accept the same principles of justice. And number 2, the basic social institutions generally satisfy and are generally known to satisfy these principles. In this case, while men may put forth excessive demands on one another, they nevertheless acknowledge a common point of view from which their claims may be adjudicated. Among individuals with disparate aims and purposes, a shared conception of justice, the pursuit of other ends. Question number 5. What is Rawls' reason for not supporting utilitarianism as a basis for a theory of justice? He worried that utilitarianism may fail to protect the fundamental rights and liberties of persons in its attempt to maximize total social welfare. In particular, he do not believe that utilitarianism can provide a satisfactory account of the basic rights and liberties of citizens as free and equal persons, a requirement of absolutely first importance for an account of democratic institutions. Question number 6. Of what two main parts does justice as fairness consist? It is divided into two parts, that is, number 1, an interpretation of the initial situation and a formulation of the various principles available for choices there, and number 2, an argument establishing which of these principles could in fact be adopted. Justice as fairness consists of two principles. The first is the liberty principle that states that everyone has the same rights as fundamental freedoms. The second principle, the equality principle. Rawls awards the fair equality of opportunity principle over the difference principle. Question number 7. How does Rawls understand what he calls the original position? What general conditions must such a device meet? Original position is the appropriate initial status which ensures that the fundamental agreements reached it in one fair. This fact yields the name justice as fairness. Rawls referred to it as the most philosophically favored interpretation of this initial choice situation for the purposes of a theory of justice. One should not be misled, then, by the somewhat unusual conditions which characterize the original position. The idea here is to make vivid to ourselves the restrictions that seems reasonable to impose on arguments for in principles of justice, and therefore on these principles themselves. Question number 8. What are the two principles of justice? What liberties are covered by the liberty principle? Can they be unequally distributed? First, each person is to have equal right to the most extensive scheme of equal basic liberties compatible with similar scheme of liberties for others. Second, social and economic inequalities are to be arranged so that they are both A. reasonably expected to be everyone's advantage, and B. attached to positions and offices open to all. It requires certain sets of rules. Those defining basic liberties apply to everyone equally, and that they allow the most extensive liberty compatible with a like liberty for all. The only reason for circumscribing basic liberties and making them less extensive is that otherwise they could interfere with one another. The first principle of equal liberty is satisfied, and that the economy is roughly a free market system. Question number 9. To what does the second principle apply or inequality is permitted under the second principle? The second principle is the idea that an inequality that is permitted should only be permitted on the basis that it benefits the society. The inequalities consistent with the difference principles are only permitted so long as they do not result in equal liberty. The second principle serves as a standard of justice, constraining the pursuit of aggregate well-being and evening out of the distribution of advantages.